Hello, fellow YouTubers. My name is Anthony Wall. I am not a lawyer. There is something called the hyper evidential that we could discern, and how we could discern all sides of cases in the past, in the courts themselves, and the intelligence, the difference between that collusion slash S. Also, leaving and having left out how the value of how and why really, not just the way nature has us individually unity species body simultaneously of individual bodies independent simultaneously slash hyper simultaneously. It's so we can discern the cycle slash hyper simultaneous part by digress. So in other words, I want us to be unity because we are the same body, America and South Korea. But we are unity and we are independent, tactically ulterior from how we are supposed to be. There is a Mike Roberts I never tried to contact, a Mark Violet, a Justin Klavinskis, and others. There's a Daryl Chandler. He has a family members that know my name. I don't know their name. They're involved with the intelligence community with Koreans. There's a Nick LaPera. There are Koreans that know my name. I don't know. The South Koreans that know my name. I don't know their name. And there are a whole bunch of different countries involved with that identity racket. Mark Violet also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed he has roles with KKK, black themed federal evidences crimes, sequence shifts, child abusers in my area, named O'Brien and Color, and they're involved with sequence shifts with them, and then they confirmed this after, non-verbally. The agencies make nonverbal confessions, where and how this breaching method knew they would, because it's relative to where and to how. In other words, people that went to other schools were already colluding with people from my grammar school that knew my name from other classes. And they were time doing tricks, putting little magic tricks, putting fake things in databases, and then speaking fake things tied to it, fake motivations for it. Then they lie offensively, sequence shifts with that, with the news. The WFSB attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others. They, as recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed communications that they have collusions with names next to them and at their location, the difference of that. Also, the difference of the at next to those locations. Like Mazzucato Bakery, since years before Mazzucato Bakery that was there. They have recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with a whole bunch of people tied to the name Colo and Smith. I don't know what campus. Don't know one campus that Smith went to. I don't know if they went to private schools. What were they homeschool? David Smith and Jamie Smith. Increasingly, they have ties to foreign and domestic intelligence that have been planting evidence on all sides of my house and putting me in fake conversations with them and with them others about those things too. So consciously knowing that they're doing this stuff, they have been preventing me writing since I was a kid, as their collusion with Weathersfield police phones families, with maybe as some of them are as associated with them, and their roles with the World Trade Center attack, including they forced Saudis collusions with them, and the Saudis forced collusions too, and the difference uses. So you guys are hiding the difference between A or B. You're leaving out the hyperforeign. The breaching method itself has a scientific value. The World Trade Center attack, the World Trade Center stayed roles with criminally foreign influence natures of industries that have state collusions. The difference of them, their guilt there as industries or their guilt at location slash S relative to their roles with criminal insidiousness itself. For example, preventing people from making convictions right by the revelations that we are shown by nature, regarding how that come with how appreciating properly how and why we have black people's rights of eyes per system of communications with ourselves that we have been forbid free speech relative to having had the phenomenon of people who speak about crimes having been collusions with predicate acts with facts. Those very magic trick acts and methods I recorded hyper evidentially, which is also in the form of them recording, for example, in the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center the day of the World Trade Center attack. They have rolls with the court itself planting a sequence, just changing the date from inside of the court and names on both sides of that case. One of the cases in that, at least one of the cases in that court that day, and just observers and the news and the difference of that. They had time collusion slash S leading up to it, long term, short term, and since the World Trade Center attack. The same ones that attached me to fake conversations with themselves as WFSB. The same ones involved through time with identity theft, fraud, slanders, child offenders associated next to Fox Connecticut News. And WTNH has been planting evidences at corners of streets and along roads and routes. They have stories at corners of streets and next to schools with people. Also, there's an O'Neill family somewhere with a campus with and Middletown, and that name associated with these are World Trade Center predicate acts rules with prosecutors and judges and their family members and intimate ties leading up to the World Trade Center attack. Harper courts and the Britain Superior Court, they affected confessions to me. I found out it's people associated with Connecticut's District Court too. They have roles of all kinds of just fabricating what was recorded in the past. Then sometimes they have people speak things while they're recording them apparently and demonstrably, but after they already spoke other. And people aren't responding, then they're just putting fake transcripts. Increasingly, there are connections between people at Central Connecticut State University next to it and Trinity College next to it who have wire crimes with intelligence families from Wethersfield, with the Wethersfield police chiefs retired, and the ones switching names with them. There's people with the name Dillon, a Kevin Dillon, Anna Dillon, and reportedly a Thomas Dillon. I never had a word of conversation with any of them. A Kevin Dillon is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, non-verbally confirmed. Collusion 3 times with people with wire crimes, mail crimes, and evidences crimes at Hartford Hospital. Drugs and medicines crimes, including with child sex offenders, leaders of kids, overt criminal enterprises, and them recorded pretending it's legitimate roles with unmarked police forms that are also involved with WTNH at corners of street on Church Street, involved with wire crime acts and methods with them. Drugs and medicines crimes, sexual, different natures of crimes all at the same time. And with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants. And with an S, use slash S of the founding locations, criminally foreign influenced, with and as names involved with the World Trade Center attack as all sides, including as victims and their family members, originally and still recorded roles with it, self-valuing identity theft, fraud, slanders against me because they planted fake ties, fake natures of ties to me instances in the past. And collusions with the WFSB people that fake conversations with me about the World Trade Center attack, including their neighbors too, are involved with the state judicial branch offices. They have wire crimes in Wethersfield Police and Wethersfield Pizza, whatever it's named now, with Stephen Stocko. Stephen Stocko, I never had a conversation with. I said, "Is a Maria there?" over the phone to him. Then he did a passion crime as influence too, because they made me call there. In other words, I never had. That was the only conversation I ever had in my life. When a Ray Clo and a Paul Zano were bullying him in a math class I had, I never had one. I never took part of that. It was like they were influenced but it was also because there's sometimes it's their families that are influenced, criminally foreign influence. Sometimes it's the people involved. For example, on out the state judicial branch offices in those spots next to it with a Mark Violet. He also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, repeated collusion with Weathersfield Pizza and Maria Pizzino and her neighbors. There's a Brian Boning, who's also all along Route 3 and its conjunctions with them. Also, Eric Oliveri. I never tried to seek him out. You know, I did things to make myself look bad and different on Facebook because I was getting confirmations on Facebook by the people who had planted evidence on my street through time. And when I started explaining that, so they started catching it. So they blocked my Facebook page and lied about why. Then they had even one of the people that on a Facebook ad on my television, which is also relative. One of the people they forged doctors' names with this Leahy family, involved through administrations with Washington D.C. people and World Trade Center attack people, who had also roles with predicate acts at each campus I went to. They're put and a method slash X with the little tricks. 2 speech class teachers I had roles on with names next to the state corrections offices and next to the state judicial box offices. And think of that word, corrections. These are people colluding with the news that attached me to fake conversations with the World Trade Center attack while they were forcing a principal child abuser, WFSB, and collusions with WTNH names, and the teacher from West Hartford with their kids in Weathersfield. And now they're pretending passions and emotions about me. They don't even know me. I have no feelings about them, whatever. They want to pretend things are civil or criminal. Fake, both of them. They're all sides of cases in the courts have been switching and forging names interstates. Weathersfield police have confessed the name Scalora involved with them with predicate acts on my street. They're going to pretend other too, but they're not clear about their names. See, the name switching is grouped too. The branches of government individually grouped in together. And there's a probate court judge's family members. And they had intimate ties together, and they had life progressions because their families have been rolled with identity theft, fraud, slander, all kinds of natures of organized crime through time. They also have collusion, digital crimes with whiting forensics through time, and with news through time since before I was born. And when I was a kid, there's people associated with Joshua Julian who have been planting evidences with news intelligence as the ones involved. With Weathersfield Facebook page and the Britain Superior Court's Facebook page too, also with the names next to them as the ones involved with the South Koreans in all these countries in the news. Japan, South Korea, Italy, people with the names Della Fera. I never tried to contact in my life. I reported them with the Weathersfield police with wire crime acts and methods, falsified police reports. Then they had live progressions with WFSB and the names next to them. There are proofs that they're into that their roles with machining too, with people with the name Violet. See, these are people for that. Then they came from other areas, made confessions. Then they demonstrated their roles with my neighbors and made it look like I knew them before I did, or that we were grouped together that we weren't. In other words, they're lying. These are people at Hartford Hospital who have been forging doctors' names and have others that just attach me to fake conversations with them, whole fake conversations with them. They don't even know me. They just had people take their picture when I walked by them a couple of times after they were graduated. Sequence shifts all kinds of ways too. These people were involved with the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center with sequence shifts. So the difference between Judge Napolitano's takes on these subjects and names, or Fox News's, or CNN's, that difference is also used criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. They're offensively preventing mandated law. The people who have been speaking about crimes, they have been collusion with predicate acts with facts, and pretending other as styles used remotely by a breaching method at countries A through Z. that this preaching method made only capable of blaming other things, others, ourselves, parts of what nature is demonstrating the real worst cause /S of negative value nature progressions, acts of natures, acts like predicate acts. I'm not even a lawyer, I'm not a criminal. Acts like predicate acts that we're going to learn better about than the law has been taught, because they can't even get the black pupils' rights of eyes white, because they can't even get criminal insidiousness right, because they are reliant upon criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments, facts treatments. As truths can be used for life, for example. Truths can be used to screen actual motivations. Truths can be used to force equality of fact treatment nature, using exceptions tactical ulterior from how nature uses them, when it's also positive unto itself, when it's also not just nature as criminal insidiousness. It is worse than criminal incompetence on judges A through Z. And law names A through Z. Why? Because in other words, slavery is unnatural. It is only natural as criminal insidiousness. When people hear someone say, "Oh, if slavery wasn't natural, it wouldn't be," those things wouldn't be heard. And you know, that was the voice. I don't know where I heard that in art, but it was in art. You know, they keep that stupid quality of fact nature as the ones that are simultaneously this nature of calmness that can only defend itself by self-valuing criminally foreign influence and tactically delusions wrought fact nature quality /IES aspect /aspects in nature. So black pupils. We have black pupils, white eyes. We have two colors that are the same color eyes. While we have exceptions, different color eyes at the same time. Because there is an identity of volume that wants you to discern. Just like you want the tip of your nail or the tip of your hair to discern its semi-nature relationship to your complete identity. But the reason that may not be clear to you is because it wants you, your complete identity's right, complete identity relationship to itself is its. Even if we make something up, it has its identity relationship to every finite part of it, further distinctly to the group parts of it, and further distinctly to the simultaneous parts of it, per the way /S it is showing us its identity to the extent we can discern. It comes with its complete identity of relationship to itself, equally value and increasingly value. And the value of that is also increasingly three ways. But before we get to the hyper metaphysics, in other words, we have to stay on the predicate acts. You guys can't help but change and fake. And or it's relative to whether and how the delusions are grounded. And we can seize them right from your minds. You don't want them, in other words, you guys have the wrong things thought. You have medical families that have been putting fake conversations and ties to kids in databases, changing and faking, spying on people, way worse than spying. The difference, this is also relative to where and to how, clearer than day. We have so many ways to discern the differences between Republicans or Democrats, or that's just in other words, you guys are leaving out exceptions, except you guys are leaving out the quality of fact nature that they can't force. They can only unless the grounded locations, areas, and states have at least one body with free speech that's not forced to entertain quality aspects of nature of collusion too with those. In other words, all sides of criminal and civil cases and the courts themselves and the intelligence tied to them. There is a method recorded that is keeping them self-valued, logic and nature reliant upon the same sequence shifts, the same delusions, the same little tricks to keep the quality of fact treatment nature and time and positions at locations and or at the formal locations that difference too is used remotely criminally foreign influence. Instead of having social media policing at Facebook and with the inter World Wide Web companies, there's a Joshua Julian involved with Facebook page of a principal sex offender who also had time collusions with organized crimes and with organized crime bodies at the same time, and with untimely death confessions rolls, and with use of confessions and these names intercities connected. A Joshua Julian and a Robert Rodriguez are two of the people who were planting evidences on my street. I never saw a Joshua Julian on my street. He recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed he was spying on me or had roles with it. Also with the Violet family, as roles with intelligence interstates involved with him and their confessions, and next to the state capitol. And I'm with the O'Brien family and people tied to them. I don't know their names. Increasingly, people tied to an O'Brien family and a Casper family, and a Mike Daly have roles with intelligence families that have been planting evidences per their roles all along roads and routes from the founding locations in Old Wethersfield. Right between them, like right between a witch trial place and a little bit over next to a witch trial place and the founding place where George Washington had to counter extort in Wethersfield, Connecticut, and Hartford, Connecticut, right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. He had to force counter extortion through what was entrenched with fact-treatment nature, torture, extortion, and slavery, northern colonies and southern colonies, sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly, and also using functionally how sickly non-distinctly against everyone was is naturally would have been naturally self-valued, except for how it made exceptions, because it had already sustained employed roles with what you can't be a role with and not have nature demonstrate that to you with an as your nature in ways no one can control. So we'll demonstrate that we could be these systems that will entertain those things like witch trials, even if they were made up. You blame all things others ourselves wrong, exactly the way the breaching method needs. It makes you a criminal insidiousness nature, let alone denying the significance of the revelations and of the means to peer through research purged. Research locations are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. But we have the people at A through Z campuses having been propagated. In other words, for example, they use what our founders said, leaving out what they declassified about that as their communications. You don't interpret what they said, leaving out how the breaching method was measuring and maintaining, way worse than spying on every voice. It had already confined all subjects treatments. Till you entertain that, you're already collusion / S with all kinds of natures of instances of evil, only capable of increasingly being. Look at Hartford. Look at the suburbs, the houses that were designed before America's founders were even born. They didn't have cars, let alone trucks and cranes. See, meanwhile, from America to Russia To Ukraine, the suburbs are manifest the same way because this breaching method employed hunger also. The suburbs as a theater, reliant upon food and needs from other areas as systems tactical from the one communicating to us. Black pupils, white survive. We have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. There are exceptions. See, nature communicates with by constantly being an identity distinct from all other ones, while non-distinct, and simultaneously, / hyper simultaneously, with every subject, an identity of relativity / hyper relativity. It's not theory; it's discernible. It is the three parts of time that we know to an extent we're real always. Are real always. To an extent we know the value of the identity of the seasons that are not even here, we know its value here now. And the reason it's the value, if it's more than that, we know about of it here now. We are shown what we are being shown is just what we are being shown. How, for example, how both identity and value, they have relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. They also have further relativity to quality of diffusion, which is relativity to where and to how truths can be used for lies. Positives can be used for negatives. They can be used to screen lies. Again, they can be used just simply to force that quality of fact, human nature. So, please, Judge Napolitano. They have sense and sensibilities on location. The foreign and domestic, I'm not even going to try to have communications about this with me. They sought me out. I don't know their names, they know mine. South Koreans associated with people with the name Demaro, increasingly involved with the corrections and judicial offices, and people involved in intersocial media, including before you left Fox News and since. They have wire crime action methods with these names next to them, too. Next to Fox Connecticut News, the same ones next to WFSB. And next to WTNH is the FBI. They have wire crime action methods and digital crimes and more obscure pictures on Twitter with the people involved with the obscure picture principle. Further then and now with worse, with a Joshua Julian, who also brought up news articles from the past regarding the FBI and arrests with people who had collusions with the natures of organized crime and body dumping spots relative and organized crime bodies. With the same house involved with wire crimes with the police forms switching names through time. Different police departments with the same house and one's tied to them. So fear God. In other words, we're just going to focus on the acts. They need to pretend they brought their names up. I minded my business for my whole life. In other words, you guys keep bringing up the people who planted evidences. Because in other words, I caught you covering up live progressions on Facebook even. That's why you took my account 2 times. Then you made fake accounts pretending to be me, pretending to be people tied to me. That's why I'm not going to get any more Facebook pages. You're lying about your motivations too, and you're using real ones too. You're using your kids for motivation. It's recorded that people use their kids for motivation. They were influenced to that through our own hierarchy, but they were also used remotely, criminally foreign influence. Robert Luskin, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants are increasingly involved with people that make fake exceptions of people knowing each other so they can call others liars when they say they don't know. Relative to the people involved with all sides of criminal and civil cases and the courts and the intelligence names involved with predicate acts at the same time, federal evidence is crimes together. Also not even realizing per all that relative to where to how the breaching method makes our own shown needs to hide and to self-value how it's only been this way. all natures of investigators in their campuses, in the departments of those campuses, individually grouped together. They were already remotely criminally foreign influenced. And because it's something that no one values, increasingly, they use that commonly to lie. Because this breaching method shows them where it has relativity to subjects and they have obligation, like with black people's rights of eye. We all do not want a quality of fact cheating nature, the slightest bit insidiousness with the revelations here, with the relativity to that of it to that breaching method, which entrenched rolls with it, forced or that person was sensed. That body was sensed, even if it was a majority of people, that body, even if it was every single person, because it had been perfected from some ancient times. And it knew that any grouping of humanity that would come out of this to try to adapt to it, it would be while there are still haven't been used remotely as locations, areas, and states, voices, identities of difference, use tactical terror from how nature uses it, where how nature communicates increasingly about the difference between positive as criminal insidiousness or positive as per its system, though. Not people speaking about crimes that are predicate acts with facts, needs, and natures, and tactically delusions wrought too. Certain type of victim slash hyper victim. Forgiveness is also important, where and how religions are about the law, and the voices of the law were made and kept. Self-valued collusions with other communicated for our founders than they communicated. We have to make this clear by seizing that, using what they said, leaving out what they declassified black pupils. Boss. In other words, this is not, in other words, the voice that speaks for the Constitution unabridged is the policy. It's a game. They make people feel, well, it's the policy going to be. Then they're reliant more and more upon differences that shouldn't have been, it wouldn't be. In other words, if this breaching method locked A through Z, needing to blame on other things, others, ourselves, increasingly, actively and increasingly, so simultaneously increasingly valuing that having been. All we have to do is admit. In other words, say there's going to be a depression or something coming. Yeah, you had obligations before, since founding, when slavery was entrenched north and south, overtly, sickly, distinctly against everyone. So that's why we need this. We need this counter program / virtual production company where we change the colors. But it has to be led by this which leads, this which is the identity, that its identity in relation to itself, and the value of that, again, where we're in how we have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. We're being shown about difference by the identity of nature itself, not just there. And then there's the part, when we pay attention to this, it's showing us it is functional, how it is a hyper invisible but still discernible hyper conjunction / hyper conjunction to all parts of languages, not just English. This is why the identity between alpha and omega is hyper additional. In other words, but the definitions of alpha and omega and the applications of it, like through math, this is through measuring. And when there are exceptions, it's through exceptions. Exception nature has criminal insidiousness. The experts on logic and nature have been fabricating audio and video of behavior racketeering with all our countries. Psychiatry is one of the things associated with the families next to and at Harvard Hospital. They have wire crime acts and methods and mail crimes with the people named tomorrow who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they brought. There's a girl that's tied to one named Napolitano. I don't know her name. Associated with a Ray Colo and a Joe DeMauro, planted evidences with their educators and names on all sides of, of the and at the correction the Connecticut, the Weathersfield Community Center. Also with people as collusions with people with fire departments and all nature and campuses, all ages and natures of them, including fire departments. A number of fire department families run into high live aggressions per tricks they use where they put all sides and the people in the area when they put descriptions of instances and communications between people where they're faking that. And now these are people with judges and the prosecutors and their family members with the same house involved doing that and forging names of people. They have all kinds of scams with the lawyers at the hospitals throughout the country. These are kinds of people who pretend on a mass who have roles. They keep in the mass scale pretending what they wouldn't don't want to pretend or pretended for them. Like voting means what it doesn't. Power is what it isn't. Nature communicates about power this way better. So you're gonna have to understand the distinction between positive as criminal and seriousness, like criminal, like truths used for lies or to screen lies. That's why we need to follow the predicate acts I brought up about the World Trade Center and WFSB because they have the roles also with the name Scalora and Demaro brought up the name Kurt and the neighbors of a Keene family have roles with body dumping spots involved with the news predicate acts. And these are places next to the state judicial branch offices. And these are people that are lying about why and how we bring up their names also as sequence shifts, as people who colluded with former director of the FBI, Robert Lusk, and his co-defendants and lawyers at the election spots, too. All natures of roles with probation officers. There's people involved with Uvalde, too. The reports on Uvalde with the networks and their roles with shootings in New Haven. There's a Fred Grouzet who's involved with. I believe that might have been if a Fred Grouzet is involved with New Haven FBI, and it was like around the time they reported someone chopped up with a sword, which is probably fake because I don't know the news fakes things. And right when I was speaking about those particular acts, then Sandy Hook, they announced this big suit against Alex Jones. Sandy Hook has roles with names off the state corrections offices and the state judicial branch offices involved with intercampuses, Harvard Hospital names, and people associated intercities. And like with the fire departments, there are proofs that that might have been a murder of the reported fire guy who was hit by a car in Newtown or Sandy Hook. But there's a prison there with some foreign and domestic families and the people that work there, and they're that were involved with the principal sex offender and the body dumping spot of a serial killer and that serial killer and the names next to it as the ones who were involved with them. With people put a charge of harassment against me by they brought up the principal child abuser to me first. So I called the school and I wasn't, I didn't get to communicate with anyone. Then the guy called back and left a message. They left a bunch of messages. And in each lesson, then every time they wouldn't let me talk. So then it made it look like we had all these conversations because so they used the truth for a lie. Because now there was a number of calls from me to them, but they put the calls to me and to others. But they put a whole bunch of messages and they kept saying more fake things. So they have a Rob Rodriguez and people involved with untimely deaths, with drugs and medicines crimes with kids, the same ones involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids. John DeMauro is also involved with rape confessions. Even if he was joking, what he wants to say about that. Him and his brother have roles with my professors and leaders of the kids and people who had conversations with them with they've been lying to educators, people at Trinity College who went to Weathersfield High School and schools. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. FBI Director for Robert Luskin and his co-defendants and their family members, who are also their classmates when they were in high school. They influenced them to roles with predicate acts, federal evidences, crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders. They have roles with the wire crime acts and methods with an officer named Darth Vader at Trinity College, who is involved with some KKK themed, black themed, and Latino themed, and Italian and other international intelligence as people next to also collusions with the next to campuses with identity theft, fraud, slander, sequence shifts, predicate acts with fax methods with judges and prosecutors, family members. Their roles with interagencies too. They're judges, their families in this branch, but they're the other branches too. All kinds of predicate acts with facts. They had a whole bunch of people involved with the wire crimes with the Weathersfield police switching and forging names and other predicate acts on my street in their confessions regarding the name Scalora involved, regarding the name um, Joshua Julian involved. There's also a Joshua Schumacher and his mother is involved with um, the people with the religious spots in the KKK theme and the black theme at Trinity College and next to it. Involved with my neighbors with wire crimes and acts methods with the Weathersfield police, forging and switching names. Per them and the people tied to them that know my name, I don't know their name, and their doctors who put fake things in databases. In other words, the proofs they forged my name too, because the other two tricks they did with the ones with the name switching and putting fake things. The other two times I was 3 times they forced me for the mental evaluation. So Weathersfield police have roles making people force people to call the police, for example, without telling them why, and then they attach everyone to fake conversations with themselves that weren't at all. They just put a whole fake transcripts and fake ties to kids, and they did that as collusions that forced the principal child defender before he was caught off campus anyway. Even if that was made up, those shopping centers were involved with the names that were involved with him then and now too, with the principal and with the police chief Cintron and his family members, and 1 years ago, and their intimate ties with the same house/S for wire crimes, refusing to identify themselves legitimately. Increasingly, whiting forensics has collusions with people associated with the Joshua Julian and his neighbors. So please get them on paper, one name in sequence, and then we'll examine, you know, why and how the news is not the news not only won't help people, they just stack a whole bunch of fake stories at once as collusions with all kinds of natures of crime, of natures of organized crimes, and collusions at all natures of crime scenes. So think twice. When you hear about when you think about really what causes all the shootings in Hartford all the time. Even if they're made up, part of them. In other words, all these shootings through in Hartford, let alone New York City. You think that someone could legitimately debate that it's a tactically, criminally foreign influence, torture, extortion, slavery method to pretend that that it's poverty. That's a shocking. It's a victim/hyper victim reaction, syntactically only capable of being per our bridge side campuses. You guys have other communicated for George Washington. You guys have other communicated for his use of the founders behind James Madison and as James Madison his plan that George Washington agreed to use, which was to counter, extort, and force the other founders to be our founders. That had to be because the laws were against everyone in layers. Everyone had to hurt each other, otherwise they would be sentenced. just knew that it had perfected its method since semi-ancient times. There's going to be a resistance. Then they're going to have to speak. They had laws. I learned at Central Connecticut State University in notes that if anyone was found out to even heard someone speaking and they didn't tell on them, they were speaking about building a home outside of internationally monitored conversations. They would torture, hurt, and do worse to that person and everyone around them. This breaching method uses this method of attaching everyone to fake and change communications about things that they weren't even part of the conversations. Because the whole ways, the breaching method measures and maintains perfectly at countries A through Z all natures of investigations, investigators, criminally point influence, tactically delusions, wrought, black pupils, remotely used. Forgiveness is because the difference of them being the worst, or the overt criminal enterprises, or the private ones, or the terrorists, or the other countries that how they are really shared on and off campuses. It forces things to be hid. It forces quality, fact, cheap nature from ways known. That the breaching method knew that they would self value rules its use of them to keep really what's keeping people talkative or boisterous about issues or not. Tactical terror from how nature wants and needs it. Follow mandated law for them, please. So there are people with Central Connecticut State University in the Britain, Connecticut, that are tied to Mr. Abruzzi, who is my fifth grade teacher, who is increasingly involved with organized crime bodies and federal criminals before they got caught, who are increasingly involved with people I never had conversations with, who were influenced to pretend to say things to pretend other by the intelligence. It's something to do with the Kolvinskis family too, involved with the ones with the name Violet, interstate, and their roles with Vermont, with a Neville family, all along Route 3, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. He doesn't even know me personally. I had one comment he stole from me. Mr. Neville stole my poem. And he made up things in databases as collusions with people that he put he was influenced to put in a summer school class with me. Rick Sanfaglione recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed there's some judges and prosecutors that are criminally involved with him through time. These are also people with whiting forensics through time, increasingly with the various police departments involved with a Tim O'Brien, a Ray Claw, with a Rick Sanfaglione, and a Mark Sanfaglione, and their roles with planting evidences with their into databases with judges and prosecutors and their family members, and overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and different years, totally different ones. First, forced child abusers, leaders of kids with connections to them, and their roles as the ongoing wire crime acts and methods of the Wethersfield police, refusing to identify themselves legitimately and stacking more predicate acts, facts, fake descriptions, and changed descriptions of what's actually recorded with every interaction. Increasingly, Wethersfield police have recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed crimes with smoke and different natures of making excuses, search fishing for means to cover up now on all sides of my house. They have an inspector Mike involved, and they try to make all positives or negatives between neighbors so they could exploit it. In other words, they're getting involved with people communication. They're involved with behavior racketeering. They're maintaining this breaching method maintains names on all sides of criminal and civil cases in the news, in names next to body dumping spots, criminal enterprises that are involved with the cases at the same time, needing to hide the same sequence shifts and roles self-valuing that being planted in databases, faked evidences. This is also why and how they're shown that later they need to hide how they rolled. You know, they have to hide past things, what is actually active recorded value now, and what is the active value of the perspective, you know, the perspectives for the future. Criminally foreign tactical delusions wrong. Nature itself will show us the means and ways. How many means we gotta donate this to you? Pantheism with the pantheism with this method of teaching about that torture, extortion, slavery method against everyone sickly, non-distinctly. You have to show how sickly distinctly. You have to show how the reactions to it are used, and or the non and the difference, or the difference. This is relative for the Trinity's relative identity relationship to its all parts of everything, and then further grouped and then simultaneously. It is why and how there is a species volume of individual bodies with group difference slash S being demonstrated, being generated by also that part of itself that won't mix with that. And so there is that part of the history that we don't know about, but we know it was real. There's what is active right now, truth, grouped that we don't know about, but we know that they're real now. And there's that extent of the past, like besides the future, besides the things that we know about the future now. There's that part of it we don't know about now. And we're supposed to appreciate these. And when we do this, nature shows us it is functional, how there is a distinct identity of hyper invisible but still discernible that comes with the invisible but still discernible parts of speech of every language. English was revealed to teach this. It is written in the language of English itself. We're going to examine how offensively the names of the people of the sciences were and are being shown where they need to hide and prevent from being discerned. That quality of fact-keeping nature that is proper for the short words with convictions by those sciences' names individually grouped together. See, this has not been black people, but we must force. See, we must force to hear, like over the World Wide Web, distinctly in our locations, distinctly from our courts, because our courts, they force a quality of fact-keeping nature that is not of integrity, distinctly from where we can't get the quality of fact-keeping nature forced here. See, news on a mass scale, they fake people's motivations when they speak, because they've been all kinds of predicate collusions, all natures of crime scenes. And that's recorded relative to how and why they won't respond to me. They won't get me off the fake conversations with WFSB and do with some mandated law. Get me a response for the principal child abuser's confessions. I recorded various ways, and you guys are hiding it, enforcing roles with a principal with retired police chiefs and medical offenders of kids. But you're not honest. You don't believe. Oh, I don't believe that. Well, say it on paper. Get them on paper. Get them on paper. Now there's violence involved here. There's gun threats. Things. We're going to examine this. You're going to get on paper. You're going to pick one name in sequence and get the cop who said he's tied to this, who brought the name Scalora in his confessions, because these Scalora people have been involved with identity theft fraud from other campuses with the people that next to the campuses that didn't even go to my school. And exceptions, they use them criminally for animals too. That's also recorded. See, they've been using exception nature, they're planting fake ones of people knowing each other ties to them. In other words, we're going to observe all sides. Forgiveness is because we have means to observe all sides of criminal and civil cases and the law and a whole bunch of different countries together. They're all knaves together. They're gonna take and they're gonna make proper subject treatment of black people's rights of eyes. Then how come they left that out and the breaching method they left out? And they have other things, others ourselves blamed, right? Where our founders communicates to blame the breaching method, obviously. Yeah. Force them out the paper. Judge Napolitano, please do what's right.